Welcome back to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. Another lot going on this past week in USC athletics. A lot more coming up this week, so let's get all into all of it right here, right now. But before we do, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen. We're on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, you name it, we should be there. You can also watch the video version on my YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to me there at CrashLit. Be sure to follow me on social media at CrashLit, primarily Instagram, to see what I'm up to, where I'll be, and what's going on with all things USC sports. In addition, you can also catch me on Sundays and Tuesdays on the USC channel for the Voice of College Football, as well as on Wednesdays with wearesc.com, where I talk with Scott Schrader about the latest with the football team as well as recruiting. So, lots to talk about with all that there. So, let's start with a bit before we get into football. Quick update on Mark Sanchez, who was booked at Marion County Jail, and he's given his first public comments since pleading not guilty on Thursday. And he just said he's focused on his recovery, wanted to thank everyone who's, helped save him, but declined to answer any further questions. And when he was asked about how he felt, he said, and I quote, "I'm recovering slowly, a long process." So probably no more public comments from Sanchez until later, but it'll definitely be a situation worth monitoring. So any big developments there, I will bring it to you right here on Behind the Caution Tape. Now let's move into what has arguably been the biggest win of Lincoln Riley's USC tenure. The Trojans beat then number 15 Michigan in a sold-out Coliseum 31-13. The big story there was walk-on King Miller had himself a game running for 158 yards on 18 carries and scored a touchdown. And I'm hoping he gets put on scholarship too, because he definitely earned it. And that's one thing I do admire about Lincoln Riley. He is not afraid to give walk-ons a chance. I think the other two notable examples on this team are Ryan Sayeri, who's come in and done a great job as the place kicker this year, with Caden Chittenden being out injured, and also Killian O'Connor, who walked on, earned himself a scholarship last spring, and beat out Jean-Ray Reed for the starting center job. Obviously, O'Connor is out injured, but those are just the other two examples that come to mind, in addition to King Miller, of guys that Lincoln Riley is not afraid to take chances on and let them have their opportunity to shine. And if he thinks they're the right guys, he's going to play them. And I think that's very evident. And Ryan Sayeri, as well, has given himself a chance to be the starting kicker, even after Chittenden returns. But back to King Miller, just so impressed with how he played and just how he just really stepped up to, especially with both Eli Sanders and Wayman Jordan going out injured. And I think he could be a really big option, especially with Jordan out for the next 4 to 6 weeks and Sanders likely done for the year. So definitely a couple of blows for sure to USC losing Sanders and Jordan, but really think that SC has another solid option with King Miller, as well as Brian Jackson. Should he come back? He actually did suit up late in the game. USC had to get permission from the Big Ten to talk about that. So I think there's just a lot of potential in this. It just shows the depth in this running back room. And then another area I was super impressed with, especially after how there was just a lot of disappointment around it, was USC's defense. I thought Danton Lynn called a great game. I thought USC's defense really stepped up and made Bryce Underwood just really uncomfortable. And really, just the big thing I really was impressed was USC just showed that they could play big boy football against the team that you could argue is the definition of big boy football. Michigan wins games along the trenches, so along lines of scrimmage. So just for USC to come in and just blow them up like that, especially with all the talking from Sharon Moore saying, "Oh, the Coliseum's only sold out because it's us. We're Michigan. We're coming," to Dave Portnoy, who I don't even know, just that guy he needs to shut up. He needs to stop talking garbage all the time, both before what he did calling USC soft, and I hope USC saw those clips from Big Noon Kickoff. I don't watch Big Noon Kickoff that much, but I do see the clips, and those ones did not sit well with me. And I'm hoping the football the guys saw those and were just like, we gotta go change that narrative. And then same even afterwards with him using the P word in his immediate reaction video. So I just Dave Portnoy just needs to shut up. But just because USC just beat Michigan at their own game, that's why I'm saying this is the biggest win of Lincoln Riley's USC tenure, is because of how USC looked, how they played. It was electrifying atmosphere, maybe like one of the greatest games in the Coliseum I've been in. And just because of where it puts USC, they're back in the hunt for the college football playoff race. And just how they looked, everything they were able to win playing Big Ten football. I think that's just for me why I think this is just the biggest win that Lincoln Riley has had since he arrived in LA. It's just because of just how this team looked, where they are. They're in the Big Ten, and I think they can still do a lot. They've moved as a result to number 20th in the AP poll, 21st in the coaches. They sit at 5-1 overall, 3-1 on the in Big Ten play. And King Miller earlier today was named the Big Ten Player of the Week for what he did against the Wolverines. So just overall, just the way this team played, stepped up, responded to it. They looked angry when they played. And I've always said that teams that have just had a tough loss that they shouldn't have lost, you play better when you got a chip on your shoulder. So USC needs to figure out how to keep that chip on their shoulder as they head to South Bend to take on number 13 Notre Dame on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. That game you can watch on NBC. So I think USC with another big opportunity to get a big win and really just keep things rolling. So I'm really excited for this game. I'm going to be going to South Bend. It'll be my first time. Then obviously there's the big storyline of what happens to this game after this year. It's a game that needs to continue. You guys have all heard the clip I post I my from my soundbite, I hope, with Petros Papadakis. If you have not, go back and check out the season 2 premiere where I interview Petros one-on-one here on Behind the Caution Tape. And he calls just everything that's going on, just it's like said it was, quote, the dumbest thing he's ever heard. So that was what he said almost. But yeah, pretty much just because of just the history, the rivalry, it can't go away. And just all these solutions. I mean, I get why it can be tricky, why USC doesn't want to have to go to South Bend in the middle of the year for a non-conference game or wants to play it more in the earlier part of the year. I've heard people, Roy Noaser, aka the USC Psycho, I asked him about it last week when I interviewed him here on Behind the Caution Tape. Another great interview y'all should check out if you have not. He was saying he can kind of get where USC's coming from, but I always thought this game needs to be played when it's played. Middle of October in South Bend, end of year in LA. So I don't think it's one. I just think maybe you could flip Notre Dame and UCLA just because I do like the UCLA rivalry, but just after just talking to Petros, I'm just like, it can't go away. And people know me, like I have some things that, some traditionalists don't like having an alternate black jersey, or I'm not gonna get all bent out of shape if we play an FCS opponent. But Notre Dame needs to stay as it is, and hopefully USC can get that resolved quickly. And also, I don't have to go to Las Vegas or Mexico to see this game. It's like with USC trying to see if they could, get Netflix in on it to help get a bigger paycheck. And it sounds like the Big Ten's been pretty upset about that. So we'll see if it happens. But hopefully this rivalry just needs to stay as it is, in my opinion. But I'm really excited for this game. Fighting Irish are 4-2 on the year. And many people have been commenting that this is essentially an elimination game for both teams. Notre Dame can't afford another loss, really, because after losing to two good teams at Texas A&M and Miami. But for USC, is it probably also an elimination game? Probably pretty close, unless they can run the table and get into the Big Ten title game and win. So that's what's really at stake here is for USC. Can they prove they can beat another good team, this time on the road? So I'm really excited for this game. Like I said, I'll be going to South Bend. And hopefully just USC, even just with the injuries they've got to both Elijah Page, Killian O'Connor, Wayman Jordan, Eli Sanders, hopefully they can just, bounce back from that and keep the momentum rolling into next week. So I'm really excited for this game and just how USC will play. So hopefully Trojans can keep it rolling. So both men's and women's basketball had their media days last week. Men's team was represented by head coach Eric Musselman and Rodney Rice and Chad Baker Mazzara. On the women's side, it was head coach Lindsay Gottlieb with Kendi Smith and Jazzy Davidson. No Juju Watkins, obviously which doesn't surprise me considering she's not going to play, but it was cool. I will just go on briefly back to football that she was the tunnel captain for this game. I thought that was great, and just the way she hyped up the crowd and got her Naismith Trophy during the game was amazing. So with media days behind them, like I said, I was hoping to cover, but the Big Ten denied my credential applications. So men's basketball is two exhibition games. They face LMU this week, Saturday at 6 p.m. You can watch that on ESPN Plus. And then they play again at Grand Canyon, another in their second exhibition game on the 25th at 6 p.m. And then their first actual game will be against Cal Poly on the Big Ten Plus on November 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Women's basketball doesn't have any exhibitions open to the public. So their first game is against New Mexico State on November 4th at 7 p.m. So that coming up. Then big little bit of recruiting news I do want to touch on before we get into volleyball is regarding uh, another top recruit, Lindsay Gottlieb, not losing a beat with recruiting and just shows what she can do and why it's so impressive here. And what she's been able to do here has been great. But getting Satya Fagan to commit to USC, another big another big commit for USC, another top recruit. So Lindsay Gottlieb recruiting relentlessly and just showing why she's just so great and why even with and just how good USC is going to be. Especially, I think this team has a lot of potential for next year, but even this year, I'm still really excited for what's to come, even without Juju Watkins on the court. So let's now move on to women's volleyball, who went 1-1 last week. They got a 3-0 sweep over Oregon, 25-18, 25-20, 25-21 on Thursday night at Galen Center. London Weejay led with 12 kills. Danny Thomas Nathan, who's been getting to see time as a defensive specialist, had a career high 4 aces. Mia Taverdi had 5 blocks facing her former school. Reese Messer had 31 assists. And Taylor Decker, back at libero, had 10 digs. So USC just steadily beat down the Ducks and just, I thought, played one of their cleanest games of the year. However, 2 days later at UCLA, the Trojans fell in three, 25-21, 25-22, 25-15 on Saturday. So Weejay and Adanya Famuina led with 7 kills each. Weejay and Abigail Mullen had 1 ace each for the team. Famuina led with 5 blocks. Messer 31 assists. And Weejay had 9 digs. So USC played close in the first 2 sets, but then just got blown out by UCLA. So not definitely a tough win, especially with UCLA. They've been kind of up and down, but they've been getting some good wins. I mean, they beat number 14 Minnesota on the road last week. That'll be a team USC's got to play. So definitely some games coming up that USC is going to need to figure out how to win. And they've got 2 coming up this week. They go on the road. They take on Iowa, who's 10-8 overall, 1-5 in Big Ten play on Friday at 4 p.m. and watch down the Big Ten Plus. And then they go to number 9 Wisconsin, who is 12-2 overall, 5-1 in Big Ten play on Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time on the Big Ten Network. So USC needs to bounce back and get that win over Iowa, who's been struggling in Big Ten play, and then needs to get a marquee win over number 9 Wisconsin, over a ranked Wisconsin team. So just really, I just want to see this team come out and play angry. And that's when they've been at their best. It's just when they've had a tough loss or just something hasn't gone their way, and then they just turn it on and are just at their best. So I just want to see that team come out. And that's a team that can compete with anyone. And right now, USC needs to take that next step and prove they can beat the big dogs if they want to have a shot in advancing further than the round of 32 in the postseason. They've been stuck there for a few years. Brad Keller has expressed that it's national championships. If it's not national championship season, is a failure. That's what he told me this summer when I interviewed him at Big Ten Volleyball Media Days. So hopefully USC can find some momentum and get themselves back in the Big Ten conference race. Let's move on to soccer now, who fell to 7-5-1 on the year and 4-2 in Big Ten play and suffering a couple tough losses. They lost 2-1 at Minnesota on Thursday. So not even 2 minutes into the game, Paige Kalal scores on an assist from of Minnesota scores a goal assisted by Freya Jupp and Caroline Birdsell. In the 23rd minute, Jaden Anderson on an assist from Maribel Flores ties it up. But then in the 83rd minute, Birdsell gets an assist from Kalal to give US to put the Gophers up and ultimately have the game-winning goal. So Bella Grust had 7 saves in goal, and just that late Gopher goal just gave Minnesota the win. Then 3 days later, Trojans lost at Wisconsin, and with less than 3 minutes left, Adi Boer of Wisconsin got an assist from Jenna Bauman to put to give the Badgers the win. So Gruss had 3 saves in goal, and just a late goal once again doomed USC. So USC comes back home for their final 2 games of the year. They host Nebraska, who's 7-3-5, 2-2-3 in conference, on Thursday at 7 p.m. on Big Ten Plus. Then they got Iowa, who's 10-2-3, 5-1-2 on in conference on Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Big Ten Plus for senior night. So USC is not yet mathematically eliminated from winning the Big Ten title, but it's a long shot. And given that USC has 12 points and UW is at 20, just any tiebreaker will involving head-to-head will go to Huskies, given the victory the UW got over USC earlier in the year. So hopefully USC can bounce back and just send their seniors off right before facing UCLA in the final 3 games. So yeah, the season's coming up fast since the Big Ten tournament. So hopefully USC can get some momentum heading into that and try to go on a run in the Big Ten tournament to make a case for an NCAA bid. Men's water polo is likely to held at number 3 after last week, likely to stay there. They sit at 13-2 overall, 1-1 after a week off. So they have their next 2 games this week when they host Princeton, who's 14-6 on tomorrow night at 5 p.m. You can watch that on overnight.com. And they go to UCLA, who's undefeated at 18 overall, 2-0 in conference play on Saturday at 1 p.m. on overnight.com. So USC has a chance to gain momentum heading into the final stretch of the season after an off week. So really, hopefully USC can, get those wins. So far, they've only lost twice to Cal. They've yet to face UCLA. So really excited to see what this team can do. I think this is a really special team. They have a lot of talented players all around. So excited to talk about those results. So men's golf finished tied first with Rice in the 16 schools participating in the Trinity Forest Invitational, hosted by SMU from October 5th through 7th. So they finished with 32 under par, 832 total score. And then Jaden Dumdamava, who is named Big Ten Golfer of the Week, finished tied 3rd overall, 13 under par, 203 total score. Tied 12th was Nicholas Dominguez, 7 under par, 209 total score. Tied 18th was Jack Buchanan, 4 under par, 212 total score. Luke Stock finished tied 26th, 2 under par, 214 total score. And Antonio Safa finished 2 over par, 218 total score. So up next, USC has their final tournament of the 2024 calendar year. Obviously, they'll have more tournaments after Christmas, but they'll take part in the GC of Georgia Intercollegiate at the Golf Club of Georgia in Alpharetta. That'll be from October 24th through 26th. So I'll bring you results of that in a couple weeks. So women's golf was off, and they now have the Stanford Intercollegiate at the Stanford Golf Course. That'll be running from Friday to Sunday. So bring results on that next week. Swim and dive hosted the USC Invitational, had men's school hosted Indiana, Texas A&M, and then the women's team hosted those same 2 programs as well as rival UCLA. So the men's team won 257 to 195 over Indiana, or lost 257-95 to Indiana, and then won 195 to 155 over Texas A&M. So they're 1-1 on the year. Women's is now 2-1 on the year after losing 190 to 162 to Indiana and winning 245 to 107 over UCLA and 245 to 106 over Texas A&M. So hopefully they can keep that momentum going when they head to the World Aquatics World Cup in Westmont, Illinois. That'll run from Friday to Sunday. So try to bring results on that next week. So men's tennis had four players take part in the SoCal Intercollegiate Championships from October 9th through 12th, with Niels Hoffman, Jack McCarthy, Pablo Robledo Hoyos, and Matteo Marazzi all competing. So up next to them is the ITA Southwest Regional Championships in Tempe from October 16th through 21st. Women's tennis also is taking part in the ITA Southwest Regional Championships on those same days as the men, but in San Diego from October 16th through 21st. Cross country has its next meet when they take part in the Highlander Classic on October 18th. That'll be starting at 8:40 a.m., hosted by UC Riverside. CSU looking to build off their momentum from the Pomona Pitzer invite last weekend. So rowing announced their schedule for the spring, and I think it's pretty exciting. And definitely so their first competition will be a scrimmage against UCSD at the Port of LA on February 21st, and their first official competition that counts will be the annual duel versus UCLA on March 7th. I went to that one last year, and I'm really excited to see what second year head coach Kelsey Shadoin does. As many of you know, I went to a practice last year, and they even put me in the boat, something I did not expect to happen. And I actually did a pretty good job. The video's up on my Instagram. It was really fun just hanging out with them and getting to just see what they're about, especially when they just took the time to invite me down to a practice. But so after UCLA, they'll take part in the San Diego Crew Classic, March 20th through 29th. Rocky Top invite in Knoxville, April 3rd and 4th. Big Ten invite, April 18th and 19th. They'll face USD on May 2nd and then have the Big Ten Championships on May 16th and 17th. So a lot of exciting action for this team. Really excited to see how they do. Wishing them the best of luck as they prepare for the spring. So beach volleyball had their first fall action, taking part in the West Coast tournament in Manhattan. So USC had 6 pairs participating with notable seedings are tied fifth were Kendi Coakley and Kira Zyangle and Ashley Pater and Quincy Stevens, both finishing in tied fifth. So those are and then in tied ninth were Carrie Keefe and Bella Satterwhite. So those are some of the notable results. Hopefully they do better. Wishing to continue this as they keep going. They have a weekend off, then they'll take part in the 12th annual Surf City Collegiate Challenge in Huntington Beach on October 25th and 26th. So final sport we'll talk about today briefly is lacrosse, who had a trip to the East Coast when they faced UConn on Friday, Fairfield on Saturday, and yesterday Harvard. But no scores or stats reported. Their final action of fall ball will be the Cardinal Gold intra-squad scrimmage on October 25th. So we got one question from the Trojan family today. This is a little fun one. This one actually is a little fun for me. Actually came from Paul Collier at Paul Collier 40. That is actually my grandfather. So hi, Papa. Hope you're watching this. And he's asking, where did CrashLit come from? So a lot of you have asked, because some of you may know CrashLit is not my actual name. It is kind of my professional alias. My real name is actually Crash Collier, but because CrashLit has been kind of part of just who I've become and just everything I've built around just kind of my personal brand as I've, built this podcast and just everything that I've done while I was at USC and still now in the reporting space, a lot of times you'll see my name as CrashLit Collier on things. So now to answer your question, Papa, CrashLit came from, I first came up with that when that app, for anyone who's my age, was in high school when I was a freshman. So around my age, freshman year, so about 8 years ago now, it was crazy to believe. That app TBH was kind of a thing for about a couple months. That's when I first used the name CrashLit. Then when I got actual social media like Snapchat, Instagram, X, etc., I actually then just kept using that and just made CrashLit just my social media name and kind of just was going by it. Then when I got to USC, people would just see me and be like, "Hey, CrashLit." So it just kind of stuck from there, and I'm just like, kind of can't get rid of it now. Just kind of, just it's just very much just been associated with me. So for that reason, that's why I go with it now. But that's the origin story of it. So that was our one question from today. Be sure to always submit questions to me. I always post a weekly question box on my Instagram story, and then also uh, put out posts on X taking questions there. So anytime you're happy to ask me anything related to USC, so happy to answer anything in that regard. So last week I went 2-0 at the games I went to. So saw USC women's volleyball beat Oregon and saw football beat Michigan. So I'm 15-4-1 on the school year, 326, 123 and 1 all time. So now 8-3 at women's volleyball and 4-0 at football so far. So my plans for this week, I'm for sure going to Notre Dame, got my ticket. So really excited to go to South Bend for the first time. Hopefully there's, everything with this series gets sorted out and it continues in the years to come. And then I may just got to see how this week turns out with just all my obligations. I may try to go to soccer on Thursday. And then just all the other stuff, either just gonna be too tricky just with my, talk show obligations and all that stuff that I'm doing in addition to behind the caution tape. So that's gonna do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen or what. Subscribe to my YouTube at CrashLit to get the video versions. Be sure to follow me on social media at CrashLit on both Instagram and X. That's where I post a lot of stuff, what I'm up to and what shows I'm on. So be sure to also check me out on Voice of College Football on Sundays at 5 p.m. and Tuesdays at 7 p.m. And then Wednesdays with Scott Schrader. Videos are usually out Wednesday afternoon, evening, sometimes Thursday morning. So really excited for all these stuff I'm doing. Hope to see y'all tomorrow on Voice of College Football. And yeah, if you see me at South Bend, happy to chat with anybody about SC Sports and what's on my mind. See y'all next week here and fight on.